Hey Gabriela, good afternoon. I will try to answer your question by solving the U-try problem on PowerPoint slide number 17. I think it was the last slide. So if you understand what's going on here with this solution, your solutions will be correct for the discussion board 5 due tonight. The ones that you sent me was not. All right, let's go ahead and have a look. So two things is important for polynomials graph to polynomials equation. One, we need to look at the shape. So for instance, look at a polynomial like that. Let's see, I have 1 here, 2 here, and 3 here, those points. Okay, so if I want to write this polynomial, I'm going to write it x minus 1 I'm going to write it x minus 2, and I'm going to write it x minus 3 square. So what it means, I need to use first degree if there is a cut, like here. So these are cuts the x-axis. But remember, cuts the x-axis. I'm going to write second degree if it touches the x-axis, like on this one here, is just touch. And if you can remember it, good old quadratic function, right? Also, there's one more. It could be cubic if it is slide through. Okay, so if we do have something like that, well, I didn't draw it well, so let me see. Right, and let's see if, let's imagine that it is going this. Okay, so let's see, this is 3, this is 6, and alright, so this is 7 and this is 9. So if I want to write this one, I would write the polynomial with a leading coefficient a, then I would put x minus 3 cube, x minus 6 times x minus 7, and x minus 9 square. And I should figure out always the leading coefficient. What is it in the end? To use a different number rather than the roots. So here, x equals 1 is a root, x equals 2 is a root of that polynomial, x equals 3 is a root of that polynomial. Here, x equals 3 is a root of that polynomial, x equals 6 is the root of the polynomial, x equals 7 is the root of the polynomial, x equals 9 is the root of the polynomial. So what does that mean? Root, x-intercept, and zeros are the same thing, just different words. Okay, so now let's look at our graph here. So we have a root at -2. So because it's at -2, first of all, I'm going to write down the leading coefficient again. I don't know. I will figure out later on. Because it's at -2, I'm going to write it x plus 2. So will it be a cut or touch? Oh, so it's touching. So then that will be second degree. I have another one at 0. Then I will write it as x minus 0. And it is cutting at that 0. It means that it is going through the x-axis, so that will stay as first degree. And I have another root at 2, and then I will write it as x minus 2. Okay, so let's do some cleanup here. So then I will have p of x. Let me write it with a different color. I will have p of x, which is a times x. Because x minus 0 is x actually, right? And then times x plus 2 square and times x minus 2. All right, now my next job is figure out what that A is. So for that, I will be using a different point than this blue circles. Because if I use of this blue circles, every time I'm going to plug in x equals -2, I'm going to end up with 0. Or I'm going to plug in 0 for x, y will be 0. I'm going to plug in 2 for x, y will be 0 here. And then this A will vanish. So I won't be able to figure out A if I use one of those blue circle points. However, if I use this extra point, which I can, another point on the graph, I can figure that out. I can figure out A. So that's my point. What it means, if I plug in 1 for x, my y value should be -18. What is my y value? My y value is actually p of x. So let's go ahead and do that. So -18 will be obtained when I plug in 1 for x. So everywhere I see x, I'm plugging 1. Okay. So I'm using this equation again. And I'm plugging this equation, x equals 1. And then y will be -18 because that is a point on that graph. So let's see what's going to happen here. So then -18 will be equal to a times 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. 1 minus 2 is -1 and -1. So let's see. Then I'm going to end up with -18 equals -9a. So if I divide both sides with -9, a will be equal to 2. So what does that mean? My polynomial then turns out to be, I'm gonna go very back here, right, to x plus 2 square x minus 2. So then, ta-da, that will be my answer. I hope it helps. If you don't feel comfortable, send your solution to me before you post it to the discussion board. We can talk again. But I think you should be okay. All right then. See you. Bye.